She stands before you, not as a person, but as a question, a riddle you can't solve, a longing you can't silence. You reach for her, not just with your hands, but with your soul. Because she doesn't just represent desire, she represents salvation. And yet, in that same gaze, something darker stirs. Doubt, anxiety, the whisper that if you fall too far, you may never find yourself again. To Søren Kierkegaard, woman was never just a lover. She was an existential force. She could awaken a man to eternity or pull him into despair. She was hope dressed in beauty and fear hiding behind a smile. She did not offer answers. She revealed the man's own inner void and dared him to fill it. This is not about gender, it's about meaning. Kierkegaard wasn't afraid of women. He was afraid of what they represented. Because to love a woman is to confront the illusion that another person can complete you. It is to walk the thin line between spiritual ecstasy and existential collapse. She becomes the mirror. In her, you see who you want to be and who you truly are. She brings out your courage, your cowardice, your longing for God, and your terror of being alone. And the closer you move toward her, the louder the questions become. Will she heal you or hollow you? Is she the answer or the distraction? Kierkegaard walked away from the woman he loved, not out of indifference, but out of fear. Not fear of her, but of what she awakened in him. And in doing so, he uncovered a truth few men ever face, that the greatest danger is not losing her, it's losing yourself in her. She is not the ending, she is the beginning, and that's what makes her terrifying. To Kierkegaard, woman was not merely a companion, she was a collision, the embodiment of everything a man desires, and everything he fears to become. She stood at the edge of his soul like a shimmering promise, a glimpse of peace wrapped in skin and softness. And yet, the closer he moved toward her, the more he trembled, not with lust, but with existential unease. She awakens a dream, not of pleasure, but of completion. She offers what every man secretly craves, the illusion that something outside himself can silence the war within, that her love will rescue him from doubt, from meaninglessness, from the weight of his own freedom. In her presence, he imagines that his fragmented life will align, that through her, he will finally become whole. But Kierkegaard saw the price of that dream. To chase her fully is to risk disappearing into her image, because she is not a solution, she is a mirror, and what she reflects is not salvation, but the hunger you've carried all along. She is both the door and the wall, the hope of transcendence, and the fear of drowning. She does not give you peace. She demands that you confront why you never had it. She is the idea of happiness, poisoned with the knowledge that it cannot last. To love her without losing yourself is the greatest challenge. To run from her is cowardice. To idolize her is suicide. She is not good or evil. She is the possibility of both. And in her, Kierkegaard saw the human condition itself, our longing for union, our terror of exposure, our desperate need to be known without being destroyed. She is the double-edged dream. And every man must choose, pursue the promise, or wake up from it. Before she was a symbol, she was a girl, Regina Olsen, 17, radiant, innocent, and for a brief moment, she was his. Søren Kierkegaard, the tortured mind obsessed with eternity, once believed he could hold love in his hands. But what began as a promise of redemption soon unraveled into the very thing he feared most, attachment. He proposed. She said yes. And then he fled. Not because he didn't love her, but because he loved her too much. She represented a life he knew he could never live. Marriage, stability, shared mornings and simple joys. But those things came at a price. the death of the solitary self, the sacrifice of the soul's independence. And for Kierkegaard, that price was unbearable. He became a ghost in her life, watching her from a distance as she married another, writing her into his works under different names, disguised in metaphors, entombed in pages soaked with guilt. She haunted his philosophy like a shadow he never outran, not because she betrayed him, but because she showed him what he would never have the courage to keep. Regina was more than a woman. She was the embodiment of the great contradiction, the thing he most desired and the thing he most feared. In losing her, he gained his voice. In giving her up, he became who he was meant to be. But the wound never closed, because the wound was the cost of becoming. To this day, Regina is not remembered for what she said, but for what she symbolized: the eternal feminine, the unreachable dream, the beloved that demands a choice between love and selfhood. He chose himself and lost her, and in that loss, he found the truth, that some souls are destined to burn alone. When a man looks at her and feels peace, it is not her presence that soothes him. It is the illusion she awakens. In that brief moment, she becomes more than flesh. She becomes the answer, the lost piece, the promise that he might finally be understood without having to explain, that in her the noise might stop, that life might, at last, make sense. To Kierkegaard, woman held the shape of transcendence, not because she was divine, but because she pointed toward something beyond. She was the metaphor the soul projected onto, the vessel through which man tried to escape himself. Her smile hinted at a world not yet ruined. Her touch suggested that suffering had meaning, that maybe, just maybe, love could be the ladder out of despair. She did not have to be perfect. She only had to be possible. The idea of her, not the reality, was enough to set the heart on fire, enough to convince the weary soul that it had not been abandoned, that eternity was not so far. In her, man saw hope, not the childish kind, not comfort or safety, but sacred defiance. She became the dream that said, "You were not born to suffer alone." And so he chased her, not out of lust, but out of longing, the kind of longing that wears a man down slowly, like water smoothing stone. But hope is dangerous, especially when it dresses itself in human form, because no one, not even she, can bear the weight of another's salvation. She cannot carry what he refuses to face. And when she fails to deliver him, the dream collapses. But still, he hopes. Because in her eyes, he doesn't see her. He sees the eternity he's too afraid to face alone. She enters your life not only as a possibility, but as a demand, a beautiful disruption. Her presence doesn't just promise something new. It threatens everything you thought you were. That's why Kierkegaard didn't just see love as joy. He saw it as dread. Because to truly love her is to become vulnerable. And vulnerability is the door through which anxiety walks in, uninvited. She doesn't ask for it directly, but she carries within her a silent question. Will you open yourself, or will you run? She becomes the crisis. Not because she is cruel, but because she represents the unknown. She forces a confrontation. Suddenly, you are no longer the master of your solitude. Your freedom begins to tremble under the weight of connection, and it terrifies you. Not because she might hurt you, but because she might matter. Because if she matters, she can undo you. And if she sees who you truly are, will she stay? Or will she walk away with parts of you you'll never get back? Kierkegaard called this the dizziness of freedom, the unbearable awareness that every choice, especially the choice to love, exposes you to loss, rejection, transformation. In her gaze, you are no longer a thinker, a builder, a warrior. You are seen, naked, fallible, and no amount of intellect can shield you from what she reveals. This is the secret. Beauty doesn't just attract, it exposes. It pulls apart the mask. And for the man who has spent his life controlling, calculating, and defending, this is unbearable. Because in her presence, control dies. And with it, the illusion of safety. She does not destroy you. You do, because she makes you feel. And feeling is where fear is born. There is a man who doesn't run from the woman. He chases her. Not because he believes in love, but because he believes in control. Kierkegaard knew this man well. He gave him a name, Johannes, the seducer, a man who treats affection like a strategy and passion like a game, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Because to seduce is easier than to surrender. To conquer is safer than to be conquered. The seducer doesn't want her heart. He wants her attention, her admiration, her surrender. He doesn't pursue her soul. He dissects it, watches her fall, step by step, as if he were directing a play only he understands. And once she is his, once her mystery dissolves into reality, he lets go. Not with anger, not with regret, but with silence. Because the moment love becomes real, it becomes dangerous. The moment she could truly touch him, he disappears. Kierkegaard saw in this the most tragic kind of despair. Not the man who is rejected, but the man who cannot accept love even when it's freely given. Because deep down, the seducer hates what he craves. He wants her, but only in fragments, only in fantasy, because the full weight of her humanity would demand something he refuses to give: himself. She is not a woman to him. She is an escape from boredom, a mirror for his vanity, a temporary fix for a permanent emptiness. And when he leaves her shattered, it is not victory. It is proof that he has lost the only battle that mattered. He wins her body, but forfeits his soul. He collects conquests, but drowns in silence. Because to love without surrender is not power. It is fear, wearing confidence like a mask. There is a different kind of man. He doesn't seduce to escape. He doesn't run from love out of fear. He stands still in the storm. Kierkegaard called him the knight of faith, not because he is religious, but because he performs the most sacred act of all. He loves, and yet he lets go. This man doesn't need her to complete him. He has already stood alone, stared into the abyss, and made peace with the silence. He has walked through despair without reaching for rescue. And because of that, he can love her fully, not as a crutch, not as salvation, but as a free soul beside his own. He sees her not as a possession, but as a mystery he will never own. He does not demand to be understood. He does not panic when she changes. He knows that to love is not to cage, but to witness. He doesn't idolize her, because he has already destroyed his idols. He has already died once in spirit. And now, what he gives is not out of need, but out of choice. The knight of faith carries a paradox. He holds her in his heart as if she were everything, and yet he walks through the world as if he could lose her and still remain whole. He is capable of the deepest passion because he does not drown in it. He sees clearly and still chooses to feel. Kierkegaard believed this was the rarest kind of man, not the hero, not the saint, but the one who can bear the weight of love without collapsing beneath it. He does not chase, he does not retreat, he simply stays, without asking her to save him, because he has already been saved, by surrendering everything. She is not an answer, she is an opening, a threshold between what you are and what you are afraid to become. Kierkegaard saw woman not as an obstacle, nor as a prize, but as a confrontation. She does not ask for your soul. She shows you the parts of it you've buried. And in that mirror, some men awaken, others break. To love her is to step toward the unknown, not because she is unpredictable, but because she awakens everything in you that cannot be controlled. She stirs the parts of you that long to be seen, even as they beg to remain hidden. She becomes the invitation and the threat, the one who offers you transformation, but only if you're willing to die to who you were. She is the abyss dressed in beauty, not because she is empty, but because she contains too much. To enter her world is to surrender the myth that you were ever whole to begin with. She does not save you. She destroys the version of you that needed saving. She does not destroy you. She forces you to confront the fact that you were already falling apart. Kierkegaard knew this intimately. Woman, to him, was not a weakness. It was the symbol of the final trial, the final temptation, the last illusion standing between man and himself. Not because she deceives, but because she reveals. Some call her muse, others call her madness, but to Kierkegaard, she was both, because she is the last question a man must answer before he meets God or nothingness. She is not here to fulfill you. She is here to show you whether you ever knew yourself at all. And in that moment, you do not choose her. You choose who you will become.